Honourable members for St. Michael Northwest.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I don't, at the risk of having my colleagues, laugh at me, I shan't be very long on this occasion.
You got your rattle.
I shan't be very long, Mr. Speaker.
It's your 11 foundation money.
Sir, Madam Deputy Speaker, I just want to say a couple of things and wrap this appropriations bill up. Give them the opportunity to do what they normally do. I'll pause and give the Leader of the Opposition the chance to run off again with members of her team. That's okay.
I will see George Payne following me.
Say hello to Rossi for me.
After what you said in case number 0642 of 2013, Hickson versus Payne, who embezzled party funds, who fit to be a QC or not, and you are therefore following the leader. I told her not to trust you. Everybody on that side, you have cursed, Mr. Payne. Where are your principles? Yes. Let that be your farewell speech in Parliament. Irene Sanford Garner will take over.
Madam Deputy Speaker, allow me to just say a few words on the process first, and then to deal with a couple matters relative to the actual estimates and the Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan. I want to thank all members who, on this side, who spoke in the debate. I thought that the members were outstanding in their contributions. I don't particularly want to single out anybody, but I think that they did an excellent job of really dealing with the substance of why we were here today. We were here for the purposes of the estimates and also to debate the accompanying document, the Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan 2018 to 2020. And members were able to connect in all of the necessary ways with that plan and with the estimates themselves. We have a very important responsibility as parliamentarians to execute the work that the electorate and the members of the public have sent us here to do, irrespective of whatever our views are, whatever proclivities we may have with each other, either on an individual level, and I hope that there are none of those, but even on a personal level, on an interpersonal level, on an institutional level, or otherwise. Our responsibility is to execute the job which we have been sent here to do. And the constitutional arrangements of Barbados speak very clearly to when governments are formed and when governments are brought to a close. It is not something for guesswork. It is not something that is left per chance. It is very clearly stated how that process functions. And therefore, any responsible administration, whether it is 3 years from an election, because the truth is, Madam Deputy Speaker, nobody knows how far you are from an election in our system. You could be elected and the government could be properly formed today, and you can have an election in a couple of days. Because that's how the constitutional arrangements are. And it has always been that way. Prime ministers and parties in office have always exercised those rights and privileges as granted by the Constitution and the laws of Barbados, and it has never been a problem. But apparently, because of this insatiable thirst, this unquenchable thirst and insatiable appetite by the current opposition, apparently, to have an election, not to get into government, not just to get into government, to have an election. This administration is to lay down the tools of work to facilitate this burning desire. One has to question, but why is it? I mean, yes, opposition parties have an urgency to do most things, to get into the office, but that's why you're in opposition. But when it goes to the level where you would do almost anything, you would, as the young people would say, risk anything, take a chance, disrespect, disregard, and even try to discontinue the function of Parliament before the functions of Parliament are properly discharged, then you really have to ask yourself, why is it? What is it? What do they want? Now I notice a very unfortunate circumstance where the leader of the opposition, in response to my presentation, yes, my presentation was lengthy by standards, but it had to be lengthy because I was dealing with two very specific, interconnected, but important documents. The first being the estimates of revenue, revenue and expenditure, and the second being the Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan. Two very, very, very important documents, and I will speak about those later. But it was important that I spoke at that time fulsomely to what the government was proposing to do and to ensure that this country could continue to function, because it would be irresponsible, nay, reckless of the administration to not lay the estimates in this House, preferring instead to go to battle in an election and leave, as the Attorney General has said, the House of the people of Barbados, that is the government, the administration, the government of Barbados, in total tatters, whilst we satisfy the insatiable appetite of an opposition leader who apparently has been promised since birth that she would be Prime Minister of Barbados and leader of this country. Public servants still have to be paid and still have to function. Health care still has to be provided. Transport still have to be provided. Public housing, social welfare, sanitation, water, you name it. All of the critical things that keep a government functioning and keep a country running so that mayhem and disorder would not pervade the society. This government, as is the case with any other administration, would have been irresponsible to have left that without a legal covering, without the legal attire and clothing to continue to function whilst we turn our attention and get busy with the politicking, the retail politicking of an election. I want to say that I wouldn't say congratulate. I am happy that I am led by a Prime Minister who is not given to the urgings of personal desire when it comes to power and office, and that he takes his responsibility to the country seriously, whether some people like it or do not like it. That's not the issue. The issue is you are given a responsibility and you take that responsibility seriously and not flippantly, like the current leader of the opposition seems to believe is the best style of politics to conduct in Barbados, urged on by people whom we would have hoped should know better and at least could advise her in her youthful exuberance that such behavior is really not becoming of a person seeking the high office of Prime Minister. I wonder where they have flown to. They seem to have taken flight of the Labour Party. I mean the big wigs, what we call the veterans, the stalwarts. You mean none of them, none of the sirs, the ones that have been knighted, none that have served their high office as high as the Chief Justice of Barbados, you mean none of these people can sit this over-exuberant and sometimes reckless leader of the opposition and say to her, but you got to pull back. And that is what is most fearful. Because if the leader of the opposition, if she cannot see the wisdom in exercising better judgment on these matters, and if the persons who we would have hoped would have been able to at least whisper in her ears to give her guidance as to what tone and poise to adopt appropriately in the discharge of the responsibilities of leader of the opposition in preparation, hopefully one day to become a prime minister, then we have to wonder what will happen if she were to ever get the office. You mean there will be nobody around there to say, but take a pause, pull back, you're going down the wrong road, take a breath, halt. You mean there will be none of that at all? It is an extremely dangerous prospect to think about. The leader of the opposition, Madam Deputy Speaker, did not even have the patience, the presence, and the proper disposition to sit in Parliament and listen to her own members speak throughout the course of these estimates. Indeed, that did not come as a surprise to me, because the leader of the opposition could not even compose a speech long enough to attract the attention of a fly. She was up, the leader of the opposition belched out a few things in anger, and then bid a hasty retreat. Did not even wait around to hear the speech, albeit most unspectacularly delivered and lacking of content, of the former Attorney General of Barbados, the member for St. Joseph. Now, I know the two don't like each other too pretty, but at least as leader of the party, she should have stayed around to hear his speech. He's a senior member of the party. I mean, truth is that after 10 minutes of his speech, I could see why she would not have wanted to stick around to hear it. Because the member delivered of himself some statement that this is a broken society and Barbados is broken. And you know, we have gone to hell in a handbasket. Is that the same? Amazing. Mr. Speaker, we haven't heard him yet on the wiretapping, because he was Attorney General when that was happening. But we're waiting to hear if he's the person who gave the instruction for it to happen. He didn't have anything to say about that, but he came here to say that not this government, but this country is broken. And we have zombies walking around here, people that are defeated, who feel they have no future. It's the most amazing thing that I have heard. Of course, having been so brutally and cruelly exposed by the Honorable Member for Christchurch West Central when he made his presentation to show all of his contradictions on the issue of law and order and crime, when it was revealed that he himself had stood somewhere in the dark issuing press releases to the paper about how the government was soft on crime and it was time to bring the defense force out here to run around with guns in their hand. But then tried to backtrack when we brought the Police Act to say that we were trying to create a police state. If we were trying to create a police state, they were trying to create a military one. So I would have had defense force soldiers running all about in Deacons in Black Rock if he had his way. And if he, yes, trained soldiers who are trained for combat of war to lead to death. I would have had them running all about Deacons in down Brandis in Black Rock if he had his way. Rather than a police force who are really trained on an entirely different standard. So I was surprised that the leader ran out on him, but she also ran out on her junior members. The member for the city. I mean, clearly the member for the city was struggling. He has been struggling since we named the candidate down there. It's fair. I'm fair to him. He struggled. He's been under a lot of pressure. I understand that he's now walking around the city offering top-ups to whomever is willing to hand over the cell phone number to get him to call him. He said, give you a $5 top-up if you call me. I understand he's under a little pressure. He's a little nervous. Yes, I understand that. But even so, the leader of the opposition, in leading her own forces, should have stayed in here to give support, if not to discuss the estimates, because clearly the leader of the opposition could not and did not intend to discuss these estimates, could not criticize the Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan, which is the plan of the social partnerships, and joined hand in hand to produce a plan to help Barbados get back to levels that we wanted at. Endorsed, by the way, by the right honorable member for St. Peter, as he said, this is the plan. He also said the government had the right strategy too, but that's a different point. But she didn't stay in here. She did not stay in here to do that. But at least she could have stayed to hear her junior members, most of whom were out to sea and lost, shocked even that the leader of the opposition ran out of Parliament. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, sir, it was as if when she brought them in the huddle like a basketball team after my speech, she was hoping, I suspect, that when she sat down after 25 minutes and said she was not participating in the quote-unquote charade of the estimates, that they would have followed her out. But nobody left behind her. She left on her own and leave the junior members to scramble around and butt about with no leadership and no guidance and no support, not even a thumb of the table in support of whatever position they may have on the estimates. Clearly, they didn't have any. She did not support her members. Left the member for St. George. Well, you know, the member for St. George South himself is I listen with much pain in my pit in my stomach hearing him. I try my best to really ignore some of the things he says, but he says them with such authority. You would really think that what he's saying is either true or, well, makes sense. I'm not going to get into criticizing him for his use of the English language. People make mistakes when they speak the English language, and if he has a challenge conjuring the verb to be, the most I can get him for Valentine's Day that's just passed is a junior English revise. I can't, there's nothing more I can do for him. So I'm not criticizing him for whatever grammatical infelicities punctuate his speeches. I actually think, given the nature of his speeches, those infelicities add a little fun to the speech, because we at least get to laugh at something. But he speaks on matters for which he has no knowledge and guidance. And there's no leader of the opposition to guide him. And of course, anytime the internet service, the Wi-Fi service of the house goes down, whoever is sending him the message, he can't receive them on his phone, because he has his phone there receiving messages from people outside. And that's why his speeches are the function, the representation of a confused mind. Because he's trying to speak while reading the next WhatsApp message that comes through from whomever outside the Parliament is messaging him. And then the rest, Madam Deputy Speaker, the member for St. George, for St. James North, well, there's no There are no words to describe his speeches. None. I leave him to the public. He clearly does not listen to anything that people outside of here say about what he is saying, how he is saying it in Parliament. Not even so much what he's saying, but how he's saying it. Trying to find the most unsavory terms to describe government, politicians, members of the cabinet, the government themselves, even public servants. Because they feel that that is a joke, Madam Deputy Speaker. And then you can go down the line. And then the others, playing Bo Peep with serious business. We have brought an estimate here to ensure the orderly functioning of the state and of government and of the dispensation of the social and economic services for the country. And rather than coming here, people that say that they want to become the government, they cannot demonstrate the level of maturity to come here. Well, we know that they lose all of their debates in here when they're faced by this government. Because, you know, we have always said, and we always know, Gold Cup is coming up, that a horse looks very good on the Wednesday when it's practicing by itself. But when it got to line up against 14 other horses or 13 other horses Gold Cup day, you often wonder to yourself if this is the same horse. So they were running around the country doing as they like, holding meetings, shouting, barking, going on Facebook, putting up all kinds of nasty things about these members of this government and blah, blah, blah. And the Prime Minister is fast asleep and blah, blah, blah. And as soon as the Democratic Labour Party announced a few candidates and hold a couple branch meetings in a few school halls, they start to get all frightened and all excited and are running for cover. Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, above all else, they have no ideas for carrying Barbados forward. They have a brief for criticism. And if you turn the pages of that brief, it is criticism after criticism. Tear down, pull down, disparage.
Everyone.
But within that brief, that booklet of the Barbados Labour Party, there is nothing in there that says, here's an idea. Here's a thought. This is how you can do it differently. This is what we think about how to turn it around. We hear about how bad Barbados is. First question on the list, what is the level of the foreign reserves? Foreign reserves are dropping to dangerous levels, and we are so concerned about it. I have 8 questions for the Minister of Finance. 25 minutes of speech, 2.5 days or 3.5 days of Bo Peep, filled in by junior members of the opposition benches who are betwixt and between and cannot themselves present because of their lack of experience and immaturity in the dispensation of political economy. One useful idea, no leadership. You cannot get one proposal out of them. Not one. Not one on taxation. Not one on how to rebuild the foreign reserves. Not one how to increase exports. Not one on how to contain imports. Not one on alternative energy. Not one on cultural industries. Not an idea on social care. Madam Deputy Speaker, nothing, absolutely nothing. This government has come here not just with an estimate, but with a Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan. Crafted, negotiated, discussed, in deep dialogue with our social partners, endorsed by them as the plan to be implemented by Barbados, with an oversight committee led by them, by the social partners, for implementation. And if there is one thing for which the government must plead guilty, if it is so accused, is that it has a plan. They say that this is our 10th plan or 11th plan. Blah, blah. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, we got a plan. The opposition doesn't have one. They don't have a plan. And they don't plan to put together a plan. And certainly not to present any plan to the public of Barbados, because they do not want the electorate of Barbados to know what it is they intend to do. They want the public of Barbados to elect a pig in a bag. In a poll? Pig in a poll. I am being told that that's what he's saying is. And elect it. And when you're finished electing it, we will then open and let you see what is inside. A big rat. Could you imagine it? Could you imagine it? Now this is what they are proposing to the public of Barbados. They are anxious to have an election. I have never seen a party more anxious to get an election and have no plan. They don't have a plan. And here it was that we were expecting the leader of the opposition, having had all these town hall meetings and public meetings and rubbing shoulders and all these things, to come in here, to dance in here, if it is possible, to come into Parliament and use these estimates as the platform on which they would lay out a comprehensive framework for turning around the Barbados economy according to them and saving this society that is so broken and browbeaten, to give hope to the people from whom they are seeking to get votes. And what do we get? 25 minutes belched out like the recent issues down at the sewage plant in Bridgetown. Putrefy the air around here and then to march out in total disrespect, not of the government, because we are accustomed to it, but of her own members. Total disrespect of her own members who sit in shock. Who sit in shock? But you know, the member for St. Michael East has said that her turn is now. She has been born to be a leader in Barbados. Yes, he said that. Born to be a leader, born to be prime minister. And she is entitled to become prime minister. He said that at a public meeting. The member for St. James North believes that, because he feels so also too himself. And as I believe it is the right honourable Prime Minister that said, his capacities far outgallop his ambitions. But the member for St. Michael East, his capacities, his ambitions far outgallop his capacities. But the member for St. Michael East, the Black Power advocate, who just sat down here and tried to abuse the member for Christchurch West for stating her party's position, which is true, but not even stating her party's position, stating a fact that the Constitution of Barbados provided for people to right of assembly. If you want to form a political party, form it. That is her right as an elected member of Parliament. She didn't come in here. She didn't get in here. Brought in here in a pancake. She came in here with votes like everybody else. In fact, substantially more votes than he came in here with. And he gets so vexed and in a passion, as the old people would say. But he feels that certain... Huh? Yes, huh?
That's just an indication of what they
That's just an indication. It's a basic reality, Madam Deputy Speaker, an indication of the thought processes that the member of St. Michael East, who I have said already in this house, if there's one person that disappoints me greatly, it is him. Not because is anything special about him. But I always say you can only be disappointed by somebody in whom you had expectations. If you had no expectation in somebody, don't care what they do, they can disappoint you. But I really expecting much better of him. That he can sit down in here and try to abuse the member for Christchurch West, a working class member of parliament. He is the defender, supposedly, of the working class. Talking about how people go out there in Hero Square to get food, as though the Salvation Army or whomever feeding people out there is now a novelty. That's been going on in Barbados for years. Just like the member got in here and said that same member for St. Michael East abused the chairman of the National Assistance Board and said that he was up at, he didn't care anything about poor people. He was up at the Vauxhall Senior Citizens Village charging people for elderly people for staying up there. When in fact, it is under him, when he was the Minister of Social Care, that introduced the fees up at Vauxhall. And getting in savage, the Honorable Senator from the other place. And anybody hearing that would say, well, oh Lord, but how this reverend fellow could do that to the poor people? When he's the person that introduced the fees. It was his policy. And it is the policy of the government because we have different layers and gradations for treating the elderly. We have the assisted, which is totally free. The unassisted, which have to pay a little stipend, nothing much, because it's heavily subsidized by the state. And then we have the home care thing that is in these estimates under the Ministry of Health, that the home care program, a lot of people don't know about it. Care of the elderly program in here, where we allow certain senior citizens who have to have round-the-clock care to go into private nursing homes, and it's paid through the Ministry of Health vote. And it's in these estimates, $2 or $3 million. And then we have the extensive home health program on the National Assistance Board, which is the main program. So there have always been different gradations of intervention relative to the senior citizens in Barbados. And as I said in my presentation, you cannot point to many countries around the world, and certainly right here in the Caribbean, that provides that kind of intervention for the poor free of cost at point of delivery. Very few of them. And we do that. But he can, to the manor born, raise his hands and his voice in support that the leader of the opposition is entitled, is born to be, and whose time has come to be a Prime Minister of Barbados. But the member for Christchurch West, who has chosen, after being vilified, victimized, and cannibalized politically by that group, kicked out of their party, chosen, as is her constitutional and democratic right, to associate herself with a different party, she's to be abused and called a criminal in here.
Right in the house, you know. Right
In this House Assembly, and be called a criminal.
Right here.
Her greatest crime is executing her constitutional right.
Just saying no to
But
something.
he can exercise his to support a leader who, when she is in her private groups, with her private liaisons, laugh at him and say, don't mind him with his black power foolishness. Nobody don't take on him coming down. They are vessels to be used. Vessels to be used. But we know this because we've seen all of it already. On one hand, it was called the politics of inclusion. In this hand, it's called the politics of bullying.
And if you don't play the game, you get knocked out.
And if you don't play the game,
You get knocked out.
if you don't bow down and worship the leader, if you don't become a sycophant, who has to wait for a phone to ring every morning to get your instructions. If you're not prepared to do that, in the Barbados Labour Party, out you go. Out you go. And he has apparently, in all of his black power liberation, working class leadership, he's saying to the people in the Ivy and Government Hill and the other parts of St. Michael East, this is what you have to subject yourself to if you want to get through in life in Barbados. That you should lose your voice. That you should lose your identity. And that you should turn on your own in support of somebody else who does not care about you and your type. It is an extremely dangerous political philosophy. One that even almost himself, he probably created it himself. It is a twist on everything that our foreparents and our former leaders, Harold Barrow and others, would have tried to instill in Barbadians through the provision of free education, as the member for Christchurch West correctly said. Could you imagine it? It's a dark day in politics in Barbados. An extremely dark day. And that is why I said, Madam Deputy Speaker, when I spoke in the estimates, people of Barbados have to be warned about what it is they are really being. There is a saying in law, caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. Let the buyer beware. And if there's an item on sale that is shrouded in mystery, you don't know what it is not properly defined, it has no particular form, it doesn't present itself to you, or it misrepresents itself to you as being able to do something, as in the famous case, the famous carbolic case, Carlisle, largely carbolic case, where they were selling this thing that they say could cure the flu. I remember some A-level law. Yeah? Very popular case. If somebody is representing something that it is not, even in contract, it's called misrepresentation. If you present something that it is not, and the Barbados Labour Party it is a classic case of misrepresentation. They are putting something up that is not what it is. But they want you to elect it. They want you to buy it. They want you to form a political contract with them without telling you what it is you are getting. But I say to the public of Barbados, if you do that, when you get home and you turn on the TV and it is not really a TV, they're not inside. When you open the package, expecting that a cake was inside, and it wasn't a cake, it was a ball of something else. If you buy a radio or something that is represented as a radio, and when you turn it on, plug it in and turn it on, it is not a radio, you will then have only yourself to blame. Because apparently some compromised, defective, misrepresented product is being offered to the public of Barbados, with all the trappings and all the frills and trills of fetes and concerts and songs written by all the popular artists to obfuscate its compromised nature, being placed before the public so that the public will suck it in and then later have buyer's remorse. I am saying to the public of Barbados, you know what you have with the Democratic Labour Party government. We have held this country together in the worst possible conditions in the last 10 years. The world's greatest financial crisis. One of the biggest recessions in the world since World War II. Loss of value in international business, $250 million a year. How many countries in the world with an economy our size can withstand losing $250 million a year and still be standing? How many of them could do it and still ensure that buses run? They may come a little late. Buses have always come late in Barbados, even when we had money. And let me tell you something, Madam Deputy Speaker. The member for say Philip South ain't say it, but I can say it. Say Philip North. I ain't say it, but I can say it. Because it was a known thing, even before we got into office, that the last set of buses that the Barbados Labour Party bought under their administration were brand new reconditioned buses. But it's a fact. Brand new reconditioned buses. That is a confirmed fact. That is not. The information is there. Transmissions and stuff. Clutch plates. So there's nothing new. But you know what? We came in with no money and we took the same buses and we got them running still today. You know some of them buses still running today? It's true we need more buses, and money has been provided, even outside of these estimates, to the Ministry of Transport and Works to import buses, and they are placing the orders as we speak. Madam Deputy Speaker, so buses gonna come. You can imagine that a company, Madam Deputy Speaker, a hotel establishment that was bringing close to 40,000 visitors to Barbados, the Ammon property, closed during this administration's time in office, during our time in office. Very shortly after that economic recession hit, 40,000 visitors, you know, was losing 40,000 visitors from one property, not to mention the others. And some of them closed out after we gave them $25 million in TER funds as a grant. This administration found $25 million in the worst conditions and gave it to them. And some of them took the money and closed the next few weeks after. But we persevered. We persevered. We fought through. We wrestled down. We cleared the way. And by 2015, Barbados' tourism was beginning an upward swing, in which it has grown by records. We have had more visitors here in Barbados than at any other period in the history of Barbados, with a BTMI that I am told does not get enough money. So we brought more visitors here with less money. We got to congratulate the Minister of Tourism and his team for their ingenuity in that particular regard. But we were after all. I mean, we're after all. Look at the cruise ship. We got slaughtered here for billing Bird 5. They tried to wrap it up in this corruption thing that they're all fascinated with nowadays. Because everybody seems to believe, apparently, that this corruption thing began only a few years ago. They don't talk about Crab Hill, police station. They ain't talk about Barrack building. They ain't talk about the Greenland dump. They ain't talk about what happened on Four Seasons. They ain't talk about the prison. They ain't talk about the highway. But all of that will be discussed at a later point in time. But when we brought Bird 5 here, the minister was slaughtered. Oh, he given a contract a special view And only one man in Barbados getting the contract. They had about 4 companies down there working, you know. But apparently only one body get pulled out. And I can tell you the hypocrisy of it all. Every opportunity they get, they slaughter a particular individual in Barbados who is prepared to put his money where his mouth is and develop Barbados. It is insidious and it is unfair. I am the brief for him or anybody else. But I think that when the chips are down, you always know who is interested in you and interested in your country and interested in their country by the persons that step up to the plate and spend some money. Because that person didn't have to invest money in Corvallis. The government ain't spending a cent at Corvallis to build a house up there. That money is being built by private sector money. And I heard them in here slaughtering the thing. And the same man was saying, Michael East, who says it sounds pretty, even though it ain't right. But he would take, when they become government, they can take up all the people from the Ivy and carry them and get the houses up in Corvallis.
I was not serious about it.
Of course he wasn't serious about it. But it sounds good. This is the kind of thing that goes on. That passes in here for serious discourse. In a country that we're told is broken, where ideas are needed, and you can't get an idea out of them. You know the member for St. James Central who gave a reasonably good speech? I was a little surprised by it. You know, one of his family members lives up in the same Corvallis and is president of the Residents Association.
That is not true. That can't be true.
Of course. And he got to hear himself and Badman say, it's the worst project ever. The houses are too small. When we got slaughtered for Bird 5, and you know, I passed the day, I see the taxi men. There was only one ship down there, pretty big one, that's the truth. We could not accommodate mega ships in the port. 2 of the world's largest cruise liner ship companies came to Barbados and said, we want to come to Barbados, but that draft you got down there too shallow. We cannot put this size ship down in there, but we won't come. What are they going to do? And the Minister of Tourism came to the Ministry of Finance and said the port wants to put in an extra berth to accommodate this traffic. It will revitalize the cruise tourism sector in Barbados. And with little money, but lots of determination and effort and foresight and vision, the Minister of Tourism and his team in the Division of International Transport persevered and partnered with people who matter in Barbados and who want to do something to see Barbados getting through, rather than bemoan and get at meetings and curse the government, and build a Berth 5, an extra arm. And we pass there on a daily basis and see these ships. They are so big you can see them from Map Shop in Eagle Hall. That's how big they are. It's like a floating hotel. It's like a big 1,000-room hotel nestled in the port of Barbados with thousands of visitors. And they're not just there hanging out for a few hours. Some of them home port and overnight. For which planes, 5, 6, 7, 8 planes on the tarmac when the evening come up at the Grantley Adams International Airport. Some of whom go and stay in hotels because they have to overnight and wait for the ship to come. Get transport boarded to get down in the port. Give the transport board some money. Give a little hotel some money. Give a restaurant some money because they got to eat out. A little fella selling something on the side of the road, some chicken. Up and down the road, you have to be very careful when you're driving through Broad Street nowadays because the tourists crisscrossing all the road all over the place. Up Bay Street all over the place. Taxi men busy. That would never have been possible if this government had taken the opposition's view and not persevered and put the Burr 5 installation down there. But vision is vision and action is action. You've got to be able to know why you're going to, because, Madam Deputy Speaker, this is a government at work. Fortunately, ignoring all of the stupid things that you see floating around on social media that is supposed to beat us down, break down our spirits, put us in a spirit of defeatism, and bring us to our knees, cripple the government so they can walk around and say that nothing is happening. So their latest mantra, oh, you're extending the life of the parliament. And the member for St. Andrew, who rarely comes in here, and should know better because he's a senior member, rarely comes, and he's a senior member, is in here quoting Shakespeare through somebody called Tennyson Joseph. But if I got to use Tennyson Joseph to quote quote Sir Winston Churchill, I got to use Tennyson Beckers to quote Churchill.
Not Beckers, not Beckers.
Tennyson Joseph to quote Sir Winston Churchill. He didn't even get the quote right. I mean, you know, people who are foreign to the land here enjoy the hospitality of Barbados, and we are hospitable people, so we don't mind him being here. But every week he is writing some anti-government, pro-revolution article, trying to harass the legitimate government out of office. And then remember, of course, I'm saying this, we are a democratic place, so we don't, you know, on the previous Barbados Labour Party government, when Tom Allen was around here, he can't be wrong here. We were saying he long back we come from. But they have met and have to deal with a supreme gentleman in the Right Honourable Member for St. Michael South. So he's not of that vintage. He's not going to ask anybody to put him out or send the police officers to take out his house, the special branch, to find out where he's going for the night. And then our Prime Minister have time with that kind of rubbish.
He really reads.
Huh?
He really reads.
Yes, he's probably, if he wants a quote from Shakespeare, it is something that he read, or from Churchill, it is something he really read. But remember, gets him in a quote, they said that the government has run out of time. Tennyson Joseph determines when the government runs out of time in Barbados. I mean, really, seriously?
Of course, he's lucky that he's not waiting at a time when...
I mean, seriously?
When Tom Allen's nothing, eventually he'll be out, right?
Seriously? Is this the level to which we have sunk in politics in Barbados? Is this the lot that are going to try to invade Bay Street and take over the office of Prime Minister and the cabinet room in Barbados? Are we going to compose a government of the member for St. Michael's Southeast? Well, she's not coming back in here after the next election. But are we going, can you imagine composing a government with the member for St. Michael's Southeast? The member for St. George South? My gosh. I shudder. I shuddered at the thought. Huh? We remember for St. Michael East, the Black Power man that has now turned away from even his own mouthings. Exactly. Could you imagine the cabinet? Is this what we are going to have? Could you imagine the member for St. James North being Minister of Education in Barbados? Madam Deputy Speaker, that is enough to... I mean, when you think about it, think, Barbadians, this is what we are going to elect. And this is what we are being asked to elect. The member for St. Michael East being the Minister of Economic Affairs. Huh? Eh? Could you imagine it? The member for St. Michael North who walked away from a cabinet and gave everybody the impression that he was fired, but we know better than that. Who said that he had a lot of demons in him because of the member for St. Michael, Northeast. It is a sworn affidavit. He had a lot of demons in him that he had to purge. He had to get a bush bath to get rid of those demons because of whatever she did to him. And all of a sudden, they are going to compose a government with a leader that cannot stand up and debate the estimates in this. Right? They say brevity is a function of knowledge. So 25 minutes of brevity or knowledge on display in this house, led by that honorable member with this crowd here. Then complimented by a Negro, a John King. You imagine that this is what we are being asked to elect?
I want a plantation.
Huh? Could you imagine, Madam Deputy Speaker, that Barbadians are being asked to make the same mistake that the Americans made in their presidential election? Can you imagine that? But you watch it, Madam Deputy Speaker, I watch it too, on the cable, and you see it. They would love if they had a power of recall.
It's true.
They now have buyer's remorse. Every day, every single day. They must sit at their dinner tables or their breakfast tables and say, well, what have we really done? What have we really done? What did we do that we cast our minds away from Hillary Clinton with all of whatever faults she may have had? A person who understood government, who contributed to government for many, many, many decades, who was at least a known quantity, and then cast our eyes willingly on a man who said that even if I go down in Fifth Avenue and shoot a fella, I will still be elected president of the United States of America. And he was right. Because regardless of whatever he did, he was like the Teflon Don. Nothing stick on him. But now that he's in office, they're shaking their heads, holding their heads down in shame, saying, oh dear, what have we done? Well, Barbadians have the opportunity to learn from the experiences of others. Do not elect the unknown. Well, in this case, do not elect the known. Because we know. We know. We know what that honorable member gives. We have seen her already. We know her paw prints. We have seen them. The coordinates. They know it too. They know it too. And they say in their private huddles. They all say in their private huddles in the Labour Party. But their desire to get office is so strong that they're prepared to turn a blind eye to what they already know. So it is up to the people of Barbados. You have one plan, a plan here, endorsed by the social partners, speaking to the future of Barbados, endorsed by the social partners, all three of them, ready for implementation. And the member for St. Peter, right honorable member for St. Peter, in his farewell speech, I believe he said it was his farewell speech, spoke eloquently about why he feels that this plan is the plan. But he didn't only say that. He said that it is the only plan that is available because The opposition has not brought any plan, has no plan, and therefore is seeking a mandate on no plan. So you have the choice. Public of Barbados has a choice. Do you go with this plan that all the members of the social partnership have agreed to and that this government has pledged to implement? Or do you go with the no plan party? Buy something in the dark, hoping that when you get home, it is what you thought it would have been. And then be a year afterwards, or 6 months after, saying, oh my God, what have I done? That's the real issue. That's really what this is about. The estimates help the government to work. The provisions in here allow the school children to go to school, allow the nurses to go to work and treat the sick, allow the police officers to provide protection and assurance to the public of Barbados, rich and poor, for the teachers to teach, for the postal workers to deliver the mail, for the customs officers to deal with the cargo. And if you could come in here and say that these estimates are a farce and a charade and should not be passed, then you are saying to the public of Barbados, the government should irresponsibly ignore the needs of the country and let the country collapse. So it is the want of the desirous, the power seekers, the power hungry, for Barbados to collapse in anarchy while they get the election they want and hopefully get elected, because the philosophy is, or the thought is, that if you mash it up and break it up and lick it up and destroy it, we are so brilliant that we can recompose it, and it will grow and flourish only because we are present. But Madam Deputy Speaker, we know that is true, but we even know more than that is true, that is not true. We know more, we know even more, Madam Deputy Speaker, that they ain't got the talent to do it. The talent don't exist. The patience don't exist. The temperament don't exist, because they cannot even sit down here for a few minutes to hear themselves speak and to give each other ideas. Not that they have them. You can't execute your role as an elected member of parliament, but you want to be elevated and rewarded to execute a role as a minister of government. This is what we are being harassed in here about. So, my own view is that Barbadians have a clear choice. Very clear choice. They can be subsumed and consumed with noise, vitriol, nastiness, and all the like, or they can stay with the government that has stuck with them. That is the choice. That is the choice. That is the choice. Madam Deputy Speaker, you can go with a leader who believes that she is entitled to be Prime Minister. That is a right, according to the member for St. Michael East, born to be a Prime Minister. He said it. And that her turn has come to be Prime Minister. That can say that she is ashamed to be a Barbadian. That can go, as the Prime Minister said, to a national event to celebrate the labor leaders of Barbados and speak ill of the country. That can sit in the shadows of office while other people were listening to people's telephone calls and intercepting their internet emails. And actually admit it to the public. Admit it. When I asked at a press conference what she had to say about the issue, she said it had nothing to do with what happened in 2006. I said in this House of Assembly that somewhere between 2000 and 2009, it is alleged that somebody somewhere, I didn't even call a name, somebody somewhere was tapping phones and intercepting email communications, internet communications, and the leader of the opposition said at her press conference, I had nothing to do with what happened in 2006. But who said so? Who said it happened in 2006? Well, she has very intimate knowledge of the particular year. Somebody peeping into lawyers' accounts. Somebody peeping into other people's bank accounts. Got in here and said, I know such a person's bank account number. Why don't you know people's bank account number? Huh? Huh? You can have that if the people of Barbados, if that is what the people of Barbados want. Or they can have a prime minister who speaks when it is necessary. Not because he wants to give his mouth exercise. Who speaks things of substance. Not get up and speak for 25 minutes and sit down after belching out all types of things that made no sense. Who has the respect for the office of Prime Minister, as indeed he has the respect for the office of leader of the opposition. Because if you want to be a leader, there's certain things you have to have. One is respect. You got to respect the office that you want to assume. The Prime Minister is Prime Minister, but he also has respect for the office of leader of the opposition. The leader of the opposition has no respect for the office of Prime Minister. Huh? If you want to be a leader, you have to be prepared to be a follower. And remember, for say Michael North, East don't want to be following nobody. Undermine everybody who is ahead of her. That is the point. So the choice is clear. The choice is clear. A decent, upright, moral, forthright, strong leader. Or you have the other choice. I'm not going to define the other choice. You have the other choice. You can choose an Attorney General who knows the difference between US dollars and Barbados dollars. So when he's asked how much a prison costs or how much a project in the Ministry of Home Affairs costs, he can give you the right price. Who's not consumed by his own intelligence? You can have that choice. You can have the choice of a Minister of Health who's empathetic to the public, who works with his public officers, who above all is not cantankerous and will have to be dismissed for arrogance from office. You can have the choice of a Minister of Education who actually understands education and manages the largest ministry in Barbados for 10 years and does it with aplomb, with commitment and dedication, and with the insightfulness of a person who understands the dynamics of a dynamic ministry. Or you can have the choice of an education minister who uses the Ministry of Education to promote their own political ambitions, interested not in the upliftment and development of the school children of Barbados. You can have the choice of a Minister of Agriculture who has demonstrated astute leadership of a ministry that has shown from the time he has picked up the ministry, an improvement in the output of agriculture every single year in the most difficult circumstances. Who has put up a building in Wildy to house the Water Authority workers who were suffering and begging the last government to centralize and organize that Water Authority in a way as to allow them to position themselves to begin to do the work in Barbados, and since then have done the work to dig up 100-year-old mains in Barbados and replace them, and put new water meters, and put water tanks, and bring in desalination plants to Barbados to deal with a serious drought situation and a drop in rainwater rainfall levels in Barbados, when a government that had millions and billions at its disposal could not put those before the Water Authority to help them. I'm coming home, Madam Deputy Speaker.
I'll remember you're out of time.
It's pretty much up. But I just have a few more. The Minister of Social Care. You have the choice of a Minister of Social Care who is careful to execute his responsibilities to help the poor and vulnerable, and who has brought for the first time a comprehensive piece of legislation to reform the social services sector in Barbados to give dignity even to those, Madam Deputy Speaker, who have fallen, but not through the cracks, because he has repaired the netting to hold them up. And I can go down the line. A Minister of Culture who, by the Honours Committee, has been given a Gold Crown of Merit for his outstanding leadership in culture, in sports, and youth development in Barbados. These are the choices. The Minister of the Environment has led Barbados as a leader, global leader in the environment, called by the Secretary General of the UN to sit on the climate change panel in Barbados. Huh? The Minister of Transport and Works, the Minister of Health. You can go down, I'm not even calling the Minister of Finance, you can go down the line. And when you compare with what is over there, really, seriously, they really want an election? They don't want an election. They want a quarrel and a fight, but they really don't want an election, because come the time of election, Madam Deputy Speaker, we will present the program of the Democratic Labour Party, which will be a comprehensive program on economic and social development in Barbados, environmental development, housing, transport, as contained in this Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan to the people of Barbados, and we will face down the opposition anywhere. And if they want little Churchill, we will fight them in the air, we will fight them in the streets, we will fight them on the platforms of Barbados, and come that day of election, we are going to wash them off in the licks that they deserve as bad behaved children who crept out of here when they should have been here executing the job for which they are being paid. With those words, Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read. Second time.